I love doing these things. I look forward to answering your questions at the end. And I just want to give everyone a heads up of something right from the very beginning. I talk about this a lot in our training, but it's the nasty thing that our ego does to us. When I talk about ego, it's not in a Freudian sense. It's in the sense that's been taken on by the popular culture. In other words, our ego convincing us that we can control things that we can't and know things that we don't. And it's that second part, know things that we don't, that really prevents us from developing the awareness we need to get better. You see, what ends up happening is we hear a familiar word or phrase and we stop listening. It's not that we want to, it's just the way we're wired. We hear something familiar, we shut down, our ego takes us off to the memory bank and has us focus on whatever we've programmed ourselves to associate with that word or phrase. So what we're really doing is going back, patting ourselves on the back, telling ourselves how smart we are, and for the 15 or 30 seconds or longer that it takes to do that, we miss out on the information that's being presented. In other words, we literally block ourselves out from the information we need to get better. So just fair warning right from the beginning, I know all you guys are intelligent, highly responsible, type A's most likely, or you wouldn't be here. So I know you're here to learn, but please resist that temptation to let your ego tell you that you know what these things that I'm sharing with you mean, or that you've heard this before and that you agree with me. What I would really ask is that you just let me take you by the hand through this process. Does that make sense to everyone? In other words, you've probably had that experience where you're looking at a presentation and then you get like disconnected from it and you don't know why, and now you're struggling to catch up. Well, the reason why you got disconnected is you let your ego take you away because you heard something familiar. So let's not let that happen. Stick with me and this will be all good. So what I should do, it's futures related. So we all know the disclaimer, trading futures, options on futures and retail off-exchange foreign currency transactions involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not indicative of future results. So we'll get that out of the way, and certainly we work hard. We want to accept our risk, or I should say respect the risk, and make the most out of that, our hard-earned dollars. So that's what I'm going to help you guys do, understand risk as part of it and prepare ourselves to better deal with it. So over the next 75 minutes, you're going to develop greater appreciation and understanding for the need, and more importantly, how to speed up and improve your decision making. As I make you more aware of just how fast the rate of change is accelerating, you're going to become highly motivated to do so, and you're going to take away the knowledge and some specific things that you can do at the end of my presentation that's going to bring you immediate benefit. Best way to understand what you're going to learn how to do is go from a linear, a natural learning and improvement progression to an exponential development path. And I'm going to make that very clear to you, and also why we absolutely need to do it. This is the performance pyramid. And secondary functions, think of that as, for traders, it's deciding where and when price is going to go. And what most people don't understand, it is our decision-making ability at a foundational level that develops the awareness that we need to make good decisions about price movement, where and when it's going. And most traders struggle. They get stuck here because, not for lack of effort, but they just have not stumbled on or been guided through the development of this foundation that gives us the awareness to make the right decisions about where and when. And when we have a solid foundation, we understand our beliefs and behaviors are so efficient. Now we're making these decisions about where price is going unconsciously, intuitively. And that's what triggers peak performance and takes us from ordinary to extraordinary. Basically, I'm going to be going through this process so you really understand why it's so powerful, how it works, and that you can achieve it for yourself. One of the things that I'm very humbled by, a little over a year ago, I trained senior intelligence officers in 8 central states for the Department of Homeland Security. And the bottom here is a gentleman that was their executive leader, incredible military career, but this is a year out. And he said, the IDT program provided my team the necessary mechanisms to learn and reaffirm essential baseline skills. I went in and put in the foundation so they could be much more effective using all their intelligence training and build on these skills to self-evaluate and consistently improve work performance. Your tailored program exceeded expectations and is still being credited for further improvement of personal responsibility to self and the mission. And I received this letter a couple months ago. And above, another gentleman who just left the Army, very senior in military intelligence, supporting SITCOM and cybersecurity expert. He's now in one of the biggest banks in the world in their cybersecurity. But he stumbled on him. He also happens to be a trader. But he wrote to me to tell me, as my last act before I left military service, I strongly recommended IDT for my entire intelligence unit. IDT was the only solution I knew that could empower their organizational culture to filter, process, and apply ever-increasing amounts of information to see further out on the threat horizon. So what I want to start, to help you guys appreciate the power of this, is I want to take you through a self-quiz to help you understand where you're at and just how significant the opportunity is to get better. So as we go through each of these questions, I want you to ask yourself if you consistently behave in the manner that these questions ask. So question 1, do you self-calibrate for high performance each day? Now, what self-calibration means is that we're consciously aligning to specific beliefs and behaviors. And by doing that, we get tangible evidence for how we're doing the work necessary to keep ourselves best positioned to anticipate and take advantage of price movement. So bottom line, we should be able to identify specific beliefs and behaviors that we embrace, assimilate, align to each day that make us our very best. And that's way more powerful than the belief that we're personally accountable, because that's abstract. There's nothing tangible about it. But when we self-calibrate, we're doing something completely different. We're going to specific beliefs and behaviors. We have that tangible evidence, and that's way more powerful than believing we understand or have done something. We can draw straight lines to what we've done, how we've done it, and the benefits that we're getting from it. So if you do self-calibrate to high performance each day, you can readily identify and define the beliefs and behaviors that are making that happen. So big difference between self-calibration and personal accountability. Second, do you evaluate the probability that you're going to have the awareness and ability you need to outperform? In other words, keep your decision making ahead of price movement. We should all have specific validators that tell us that we're good to go, that we're certain of state, confident of strategy, committed to waiting for market alignment. For my clients, I call this the golden rule. We only want to turn our machines on with the intent of trading when we're certain of state, confident of strategy, committed to waiting for market alignment. That means we know what we want to do, why we want to do it, how we're going to do it. All our energy is available to develop awareness for when to enter and exit the market. So very, very important. So like I said, if you're able to quantify the probability for your success, then you're certain, confident, committed. Next, do you think critically by prioritizing tasks, application of resources, solving problems, resolving conflict? You're probably thinking to yourself, well, of course, I absolutely do that. This is what responsible people do. Again, here's the trap. We believe we do these things, but what are the specific beliefs and behaviors that we can draw straight lines to that validate, that give the evidence that we are? And if we are doing these things, here's the cool thing. We're realizing our potential. We're getting better. You know, I tell my kids, I got a whole bunch of them, you got to go to school. You might as well make the most of it, right? You got to put the time in. Make the most of it. Well, it's the same thing for us as professionals. Anything we're doing, we want to make the most of it. But that's not going to happen unless we understand the specific beliefs and behaviors that are going to create that awareness that we need to stay ahead of price movement. That's the only way we're going to realize and expand our potential. You behave proactively by consistently seeking out and, or I should say, seeing and filling development and performance gaps. Here's the hallmark of an elite professional. They understand there is always something to fix. There's always something to fix. That's the difference between someone who is engaged and someone who is highly engaged. I have no doubt all of you are engaged or you wouldn't be here. Folks that are highly engaged understand there is always a gap to fill. And every time they see and fill, they're gaining competitive advantage. They get excited about that. They've made a habit out of doing that. And their reward, they stay ahead of the rate of change. They stay ahead of current events. They've got more energy at the end than the start of the day because everyone's chasing their good decisions. And so that's what we want to do as a trader. We want to be so far ahead of price, everything seems effortless. Take a moment to think about genuine professionals, the real pros, right? And how effortless they make everything look. Well, the reason they're doing that is they have such incredible awareness that they're just a step ahead of everyone. In business, they best anticipate and fulfill customer, team, and organizational needs. They're handing you the wrench before you know you need it. A high-performing trader is getting in and out of the market before anyone else is even thinking about it. Question 5, do you provide highly targeted direction and support to keep yourself aware and capable? In other words, how do you support your professional development? And it's not something that every 3 months, okay, I think I'll get better at something. We have to do that every day. And when I take you through just how fast the rate of change is accelerating, you're going to become highly motivated to do it. And so again, high performers, they've made a habit out of providing themselves highly targeted direction and support on a daily basis. Make the most out of their time and effort. And here's the cool thing again, that's just bringing us more professional and personal fulfillment, more energy. I want you guys to think about what makes you feel good. It's a sense of accomplishment, figuring something out, learning something new, having a good day in the markets. Or even if you struggle, then being able to figure out why. So this is all powerful stuff. And bottom line, it should give us great understanding for the opportunities that we have to get better right now. Do you lead by example? If you do, then your good behavior inspires and compels others to do the same, to self-calibrate for high performance, to be their best. And here's the thing. When people see us doing good things, making good effort, providing support to others, guess what? We're going to get that from them. Does that make sense to everybody? The golden rule, treat others as you would like to be treated. Well, think about that, how that extrapolates out into the business world, how that extrapolates out into your development as a trader. Trust me, hard work, good effort, genuine behavior does not go unnoticed. And that brings you more support than you can ever imagine. And then finally, do you engage in ethical conduct? I have no doubt that the overwhelming majority of you guys do. But let's never underestimate the value of engaging in ethical conduct. What we're doing is we're protecting those who are making their best efforts from those who are not. And if we're not protecting people who are making their best efforts, then we really don't have the expectation of being protected either, right? Again, we get what we give. And it just creates more and more energy. We can never have too much energy as a trader. The more energy we have, the higher the probability our decision making is going to stay ahead of price movement. So take a moment to consider how much more energy, how much greater awareness you would be if you could have answered each of those questions without hesitation. If you could identify the specific beliefs and behaviors that are going to make you your best. And again, the power that comes from having that genuine knowing that you've done everything you can to put yourself in the best position to anticipate and take advantage of price movement. That's the best we can do. That's the most we can expect out of ourselves. That's what we can control. That's what's reasonable. And that's what I give the people the tools to do. So, when we go to drive our car, unless there's gas in the tank, or now, if you have a Tulsa or something similar, unless the battery's charged, we're not going anywhere. We need fuel. We need power, right? And I think we forget all too often the power that drives us as human beings is trust. There's fear, and that's bad stuff. Think about it. Would you rather be driven by fear or a future vision, knowing if you do this, you'll get that? But the only way we get that future vision is if we trust ourselves to think independently. And who are the people that we want to be attracted to? Or I should say that we want to participate with in business. The people that are creative, that have a future vision, that understand what's going on, that can give us insights, that appreciate our efforts to get better, and they're willing to help us, right? All that happens because of trust. In other words, trust is the fuel that drives us, whether we're a trader, an engineer, a teacher, a doctor, an electrician, a plumber, a contractor, whatever it is that we do, trust drives us. We have to trust ourselves to make decisions. We have to be trusted by others to be engaged. Two biggest problems traders have, two biggest challenges, are patiently waiting for the market to align with our strategy and then consistently executing. How many times have you guys beaten yourself up because you didn't wait and you didn't consistently execute? I'm not going to call out any names, just go ahead, put a yes or an amen into the question panel here. How many times have you beaten yourself up for not waiting for market alignment or not consistently executing? Out of all the years that I've done this, those are the two biggest things traders crush themselves time and time again. It's not really that hard to figure out where the market is going and when. The tough part is waiting for it and consistently executing. And to wait, that takes patience. Patience takes energy. That energy comes from trust. And then to consistently execute, that takes strong conviction. That strong conviction comes from trust. So if we had to focus on one thing that was going to best support our development and performance as a trader, it would be building and earning trust. In fact, if we had to focus on one thing, no matter what our profession, that was going to give us the greatest benefit in supporting our development and performance, it would be building and earning trust. And here's the thing, educational, professional, and organizational training and development experts, they've missed that. That's what's created this foundational development gap. When the intelligence community engaged me, trust me, all these guys were ex-military in very special teams, and I'll leave it at that. There was one woman, naval intelligence. But anyway, you can imagine the incredible training that the military provides, especially to their elite. And you can imagine the character of the folks that qualify and make it through. I mean, it is just to get recommended to these elite schools is a tremendous accomplishment, and then less than 10% make it through. In some cases, less than 2%. So these are high quality people. And fortunately, high quality people throughout our intelligence community. But what they've recognized is that this foundation is not in place. In other words, all the effort is at the functional level. For traders, where and when is price going to go? For an intelligence officer, identifying and analyzing the threat and drawing out correlations and getting information to the right people for actionables. But what they all miss is the tremendous opportunity to speed up and improve decision making by embracing and assimilating to the beliefs and behaviors that cause information to be filtered, processed, and applied most effectively. And this is what the education, the academic, the experts have missed. And it's created this incredible foundational development gap. Now, this gap has always been there. But what has made it, exposed it, if you will, is this accelerating rate of change. And this accelerating rate of change, which I'm going to get to in great detail in a couple minutes, has really shown our Achilles heel of mankind. And so the best way to understand this gap, it represents our incomplete understanding for the power and construction of trust. You know, think about it. I've spent a lot of time here talking about how trust is the energy, how it makes everything happen for no matter what we do, right? When you were in grammar school, how many semesters did you have, or I should say, in what grades did you get educated in trust? When you were in high school, how many semesters? When you were in college, how many courses? Or grad school? Or as a business professional, how many courses in trust did you receive? None. Amazing. The most important thing that determines our, supports our development, determines our success, and there's no formal education in the mechanics behind it. It's all assumed. Left to chance. So please don't let your ego tell you that you know everything there is to know about trust. Because if our understanding for the power and construction of trust were complete, there would be no conflict. We would have realized our collective strengths. We would be sharing an abundance beyond our imaginations and falling over ourselves to help each other out. We would be in a frictionless environment. Information and knowledge would be flying. And I don't know about you, but as a trader, that's the best environment we can be. No distraction and conflict, information and knowledge just flying. You talk about great clarity, focus, high energy, being in the best place to anticipate and take advantage of price movement. This gap keeps us from developing awareness for the work that matters most and preparing to do it best. There are absolutes in life. And the greatest absolute that unites all of us is that we have to be able to build and earn trust. And the better we are at building and earning trust, the more successful we are going to be. And there's a very precise way of doing that. This gap, our lack of understanding for the power and construction of trust, is why people struggle with the quiz. In other words, they can't go bang, 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 going to the beliefs and behaviors that they self-calibrate to, that they measure their probability for success on. Big things, beliefs and behaviors that they use to see the gaps that they need to fill to gain competitive advantage. So we're going to fill this gap. And when we do, we're going to be able to build and earn trust most effectively. Now, filling this gap, I call it intuitive development. And anybody can do it. All it requires is the desire to better understand the things that work and do what works better, right? And the desire to more frequently experience professional and personal fulfillment, have higher energy, greater awareness, be able to push our decision making further ahead of real-time events, further ahead of price movement, further ahead of that accelerating rate of change. And so here's the thing about intuitive development. It's not a hardship. We don't have to get up at 5 in the morning to go to the gym or out to run. We don't have to go on a diet to lose a bunch of weight. We don't have to go back to school and gain a degree. We don't have to work more hours per week. Actually, intuitive development will end up spending less time in front of our screen, making fewer trades, and being significantly more profitable. Because we're going to be locked in on the work that matters most, prepared to do it best. We're going to have great clarity and focus for where price and going is when, have the trust to wait for it, the conviction to consistently execute. My weak attempt at humor here, intuitive development doesn't require a wardrobe makeover, plastic surgery, or liposuction either. So I want to talk about the accelerating rate of change. In 1965, Gordon Moore, he was a co-founder of Intel, he recognized that the number of transistors fitting onto a chip were doubling about every year. So he hypothesized that that would lead to computer power doubling every 2 years. In other words, just because we're doubling the processing capacity, there's all the other engineering that's got to go in to catch up to take advantage of that, both on hardware and software. So basically, power of computing doubles every 2 years. And so that's been proven time and again. Moore's Law. Ray Kurzweil, the chief engineer for Google, took Moore's Law and he extrapolated it out to the impact on the human brain's ability to filter, process, and apply information. And doing the math, Kurzweil basically said, look, the human brain's not going to be able to keep up in the very, very, very near future. And I'm going to show you in about 2 slides just how close that future is because of Moore's Law. Remember, when we're doubling the computing power, what we're doing is we're doubling the volume and speed of information being distributed. Everybody follow me on that? Again, don't be shy. Take your fingers over to the keyboard. I have a hell of a time reading body language and facial expressions over the internet. So singularity. Kurzweil believes that we're going to have a chip in our head to integrate with computing power to remain relevant. I want to help you understand how close and how significant that is. We're going to use the year 2000 as a baseline. And we're going to assign a value of 1 to the collective power of technology in 2000. So it doubles every 2 years. So in the year 2, now it's twice as much. In 2004, twice as much again. In 2006, twice as much again. I want you to go to 2016. Because of Moore's law, that 1 now has a value of 250. In 2018, it's going to be 500. Less than a year and a half away as we're in September now, so 16 months. In the year 2020, it's going from 500 to 1,000. Is that resonating with anybody? In other words, we have to speed up our ability to filter, process, and apply information dramatically, unless we want a chip in our head. Just look what's going to happen over the next 3.5 years. And this is only the beginning. Traditional education, the pros, the experts, they've missed this. They've missed this. They have not prepared us to cope with this accelerating rate of change. They have not prepared us to go from a linear and natural learning and improvement progression to an exponential development path. There is already an incredible disconnect between advancing technology and economic well-being. That should be obvious to everyone. Technology has always lifted all boats. You know, we've gone from over 1/3 of the population being farmers then to about 1%. They just went and found other ways to create value. That's not happening now because we have a breakdown in trust. Understand this. This is the most fundamental economic thing we can all understand. You know, we've got supply and demand, but at the base of that, growth is dependent upon risk-taking. Everybody with me? In other words, we have to have a vision. We have to take the risk to make that vision a reality. Time, effort, capital, right? Plus the risk of humiliation if our future vision is not in line with what will happen, right? A lot of failure out there too. It takes risk, it takes courage, and that's what drives growth. But guess what? Underneath the foundation for that risk is trust. You want to understand why we have contracting growth to no growth? And I could talk about that until I'm blue in the face about GDP and why. It's because we don't have the foundational trust that risk takers need to drive growth. Everybody follow me? We don't have the foundational trust that's necessary to support the risk-taking needed to drive growth. Folks, we do not build trust printing money. We build trust by developing better policy, putting better tax laws and tax programming in place. These are the things that have to be done to restore the foundational trust to support the risk-taking that's going to drive growth. All right, so this is to 2020. Again, dramatic jump here over the next 3.5 years. Now here's 2020 on this line. We're at 1,000 here. $2030, I got to go back to my spreadsheet, but I think we're about 70,000. So 1,000 to 70,000 in about 10 years. And then look at the acceleration from 2032, 2034, 2037. When we get to the year 2040, folks, the power of technology is going to be 1,000,000 times greater than it was in the year 2020. Now, I know what some of you were thinking. Shoot, I'll be retired, long gone by then, right? What about your kids or your grandkids? Or how fun is retirement going to be if we can't comprehend what's going on? Anybody think about that? Even if you never trade, all of us should be highly motivated to speed up and improve our decision making so we can stay ahead of this, so we don't end up with a chip in our head. Look what happens from 40 to 60. 44 years from now, I'll be 101. And as far as technology is advancing, I could very easily still be around. All of us could easily be around. Now it's at 1 billion. 1 billion. Again, think about your kids, your grandkids. They're not getting this stuff in school. I'm in conversations now with the University of Illinois because they recognize this. When we get out to the year 2080, now it's at 1 trillion. 1 trillion times greater than it was in the year 2020 in 80 short years. You guys can go to a spreadsheet, do the math yourself. Just start out with the value of 1 in the year 2000 and double that value every 2 years. You'll get the same number. Actually, it's a little greater than 1 trillion. But bottom line, no matter who we are, what we're doing, where we're at in life, this should be a huge wake-up call for the significant and immediate need to speed up and improve our decision-making. And here's the really cool part. It is not that hard to do. It requires about 17 hours of your time. Hell, if you're into binge watching on television, you can knock it out in a Saturday and recover on Sunday. And then the 90-day reflection cycle, then going back and repeating the training so you keep taking more out of it. But it's a small price to pay versus this risk, this onslaught, this incredibly accelerating rate of change. So, Dan gave some background on me, but I just want to share how I figured this stuff out. I started out life as a CPA with Arthur Andersen, public accountant. What public accountants do, we're auditors. We go into businesses and we look at their procedures, their practices, and then their controls, and that gives us some comfort over what we're seeing in their financials, in their income statement, and into their balance sheet. And we apply generally accepted accounting principles and FASB and the tax code and all of that, so we can sign off and say, you know what, these financials are representative of the financial health, of the fiscal health of the company, or for the performance over this period in time. But bottom line, out multiple different clients, spending the most of our time interviewing folks as to what they do and why, and validating controls. So doing that, obviously, I got exposed to a lot of different business cultures. In other words, the beliefs and behaviors creating the work environment, whether it's supporting it or repressing it. And obviously, there was a culture at Andersen, too, Well, I left all of that in 1983 to come onto the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and trade. I left because I couldn't stand the culture. What I couldn't stand was the political stuff. In other words, if you need my help, ask me. If I need your help, I'm going to ask you. But, you know, the backstabbing, the brown nosing, just all the crap at Andersen, and then also that you would see in a corporate environment that I would be out auditing. I don't need that. Come to the floor of the Mercantile Exchange, it's amazing. No BS. You either made the trade or you didn't. Wow. And the only thing that you had was your honor, your trust. I don't know how many of you understand the dynamics of pit trading, but we're literally flashing and shouting, hand signals and voice, nod of a head, transacting tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And if there's a mismatch in out trade, every guy trading in the pit is at risk of being bankrupt the next day, even on a slow day. So it is all built on an unconditional foundation of trust. And that's why it is just an incredibly efficient marketplace. So I thought to myself, wow, imagine if a business was efficient as a trading floor. You either made the trade or you didn't. And so that got me thinking. And so what I realized was trading floor, hyper-dynamic environment. High volume of information, highly dynamic. The only way it can be filtered, processed, and applied fast enough to stay ahead of price movement is unconsciously through intuitive function. That pressure is not in a business environment. But the pressure of the trading floor, demanding high intuitive function, for that to be there, specific beliefs and behaviors created. So I started figuring out and validating what those were. So that's how all of this was created. I contrasted the beliefs and behaviors of a hyperdynamic environment, the trading floor, with that of a business environment, the beliefs and behaviors creating that culture. And then an amazing thing happened. I started sharing what I created. People were blown away. One of my partners, Annapolis grad, went into the Marine Corps upon graduation, F-18 fighter pilot for 11 years, Top Gun graduate. He was the Marine pilot for the Blue Angels for a 3-year cycle. He was the first Marine pilot that got to be one of the 2 solo pilots to do all the real crazy stuff in the Blue Angels. Not that all of it isn't crazy, but they did the ultra crazy stuff. Then he went on to become a naval strike warfare instructor. There's 70 fighters on an aircraft carrier. They spend about a month out in the desert getting tuned up before they deployed. He was one of the officers that signed off on their competency collectively, individually and collectively as a group before deployment. He transferred to the Air Force. Actually, he retired after his 20, went home to Bozeman, put in for a transfer into the Air Force, became an F-16 pilot, ended up as squadron commander. His squadron was activated after 9/11. He went back in full-time. He retired from the Air Force, a brigadier general. Then he went into oil, gas, and mining industry. Folks senior to him had started this consultancy out in Denver called Check 6. It became the premier safety and high-performance team-building consultancy. And he was with them for 5 years. He found out what I was doing. Never seen anything like it. And that I've had that validation from Delta Force, from SEALs, from law enforcement professionals. So this stuff works. It's powerful, but more importantly, it's simple. And so what we want to do is we want to learn how to achieve and sustain high intuitive function. What that really means is learning how to build and earn trust most effectively. And so let's talk about what intuitive function is. I'm sure you guys have an abstract understanding, but I want to make it concrete. Again, shut down your ego so you can hear what I'm sharing with you. Most important thing to understand about intuitive function is that it is learned and developed. In other words, we can get it. What intuitive function is, it's proactive behavior. It drives our evolution. Intuitive function is what allows us to think ahead. Specific beliefs and behaviors drive proactive behavior to make that happen. So, a wordy definition, intuitive function is the unconscious application of creativity and imagination, integrating skill, knowledge, and experience in a manner causing us to frequently realize and expand our potential. It brings out our best. Takes us from ordinary to extraordinary. Instinctive behavior is 180 degrees away from intuitive function. This is the other thing that people are amazed by. Nobody has explained this to them. They think intuitive function and instinctive behavior, intuition, instinct is the same thing. No, it's not. Biggest thing to understand about instinctive behavior, it is reactive. It's coded into us. It's part of our DNA. They're unconscious. It's the unconscious application of behaviors shared by a species necessary to its survival. We know not to jump off the cliff. We got that. But if I were to take an Aborigine out of the outback, never experienced civilization, and place them, if I could calm them down enough, behind the driver's seat or behind the driver's wheel in a car, they would not intuitively know how to drive the car. They have no learned and developed skill, knowledge, experience associated with driving, let alone traveling in a car. So please take a moment and really let that sink in, the difference between instinctive behavior and intuitive function. Athletes can gain dramatic acceleration and improvement to their development performance by understanding this difference. So here's the thing. Please listen to this. Write this down. Carve it on your desk. Proactive traders will always outperform reactive traders because their behaviors develop superior awareness and the trust to practically apply it by acting on their future vision, consistently executing. This is where 95% plus of traders fail. Believe me, I know nobody wants to fail. I know folks come to this business and they're ready to do the work. The problem is, because of that foundational development gap, they can't find their way to the work that matters most and prepare to do it best. When you are in a trading room, you are conditioning yourself to behave reactively. When you're using a third-party software, you're conditioning yourself to behave reactively. In other words, you're sabotaging yourself because you're relying on someone else to develop the awareness and make the decisions for you instead of doing that on your own. Everybody follow me on that? Trading room, third-party software, you're conditioning yourself to behave reactively. Now, trading rooms can be good, third-party software can be good when you understand that risk. In other words, when your mindset is to be proactive, so you can take what they're sharing with you and apply it on your own. So all professionals perform intuitively to some degree. The most effective consistently achieve and sustain high intuitive function. They have the awareness and ability to see and do before others, best anticipate and take advantage of customer, team, organizational needs, and as a trader, anticipate and take advantage of opportunities in the market. I want to give you an example of highly intuitive people. Oprah. I don't know how many of you know this, but back in the day, Oprah was doing daytime television, competing against Phil Donahue and Maury Povich. And they all had the same format: bring on a dysfunctional guest and entertain their audience at the expense of the dysfunctional guest. They were all doing it. Jerry Springer has taken it to an art form. But Oprah said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Now keep in mind, Oprah was the most successful female daytime personality in history at the time. And she went to her producers and said, you know what, I'm out. I'm changing my format. You can imagine how that went over, right? They're killing it, and she wants to change it. She had to change it because it was making her sick. She knew what she was doing was wrong. So she went to living life well, kindness, caring, improving the human condition. And the rest is history. Most successful television personality ever by a whole lot. Everybody follow me on that? It's not because she had an IQ of 180, not that she isn't a very intelligent woman, but she understood she wasn't building and earning trust. She wasn't making things better. She wasn't a value creator in that format. And she stepped away from that, and everything changed dramatically. Gates and Allen. You know, Bill Gates saw all this computing power, said, wow. Looked at these big computers taking up a room or two rooms or half the side of a warehouse. So that's cool stuff, but it's not going to do anybody any good unless a business can communicate with a computer. Future vision. But figured out a way to write computer language so businesses could communicate with the computer. Jobs and Wozniak. Wow. There should be a personal computer. Let's figure out how to build it. Literally tinkering away in Jobs' garage. Larry Ellison. He looked at this internet thing and recognized people are going to need software to communicate, to develop on the internet to make it all work. So he created Oracle. Jeff Bezos started selling books, and he said, if I can sell books on the internet, right? Ship them, don't need a big box, I can keep my costs down, what else can I sell? In other words, he figured out a way to use the internet to satisfy traditional commercial needs, and he's knocking it out of the park. And if any one of you have been with me, I've always saying, you know, I've said this since 2005. If I had to put money into one company and step away, it would be Amazon. Then there's Page and Brin. They looked at the power of the internet and said, well, it's great, but you know, we got to organize people so we can use its power. So they created a better search engine. I'm not saying these guys aren't intelligent people, but they behave proactively. They had a future vision. And that future vision was all based on value creation. And the financial rewards came later. I want to talk about intuitive function in athletes. Remember, all athletes possess the necessary balance of size, strength, speed, skill, and smarts, right? You look at a football team, basketball team, a baseball team, a hockey team. You know, granted, in baseball and hockey, there's not that much of a variation in size as you have in basketball and football. And in soccer, there's not that much of a variation either, but still there is. But bottom line, that athlete has a balance of size, strength, speed, skill, and smarts. So what makes the difference? Is it because they're physically dominating their opponent? Absolutely not. Henry Aaron was 6 feet, 180 pounds, hit more home runs than anyone. He wasn't overpowering like Babe Ruth, who was 6'3", 230 pounds, 3 inches, 50 pounds heavier. Look at Nicklaus and Sorenstam in golf. They didn't physically dominate. They were just mentally tougher than the competition. High intuitive function. Federer and Margaret Court, the best in tennis. Why? Because they could physically dominate? No. They were mentally tougher. High intuitive function. Wayne Gretzky, he was the same size as Aaron, 6 feet, 180 pounds. You know where I say Oprah was the greatest television personality ever? By a lot? Go look at Gretzky's stats and how far ahead he is of the second person in hockey. Joe Montana, 6'2", 200 pounds. 4 Super Bowls, MVP 3 times. He couldn't physically dominate. Compare him to Elway, to Jim Kelly, his peers. They were 3-4 inches taller, 30, 40 pounds heavier, superior arm strength. Montana just saw and trusted himself to throw earlier. Michael Jordan, 6'6", 216 pounds. He couldn't physically dominate anyone. He just saw ahead. I had season tickets for the Bulls from 87 through 99. Sat 12 rows off the end of the court in the old Stadium 7 when we went to the United Center. I got to see Jordan close up. He was just incredibly more intuitive than anyone else on the floor. You know, you hear these athletes, or I should say commentators saying, hey, that guy was a step faster. No, he wasn't a step faster. His recognition was faster. I want to take this to an experience we all share, driving our car. Right? We're going down a busy interstate, lots of traffic, rush hour, right? So what's happening is we're consistently making unconscious decisions at 2 levels while we're driving. In other words, we're going along, we're listening to the radio, we're talking, we're thinking about something, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we take evasive action and avoid an accident. Anybody have that experience? Just driving along and out of nowhere, boom. You make a correction and everybody's safe, right? We've all had that. Well, here's what's happening. At the deep foundational level, we're following the rules of the road. In other words, our trust for the rules of the road, that everyone else out in the road will follow them. They're highly motivated to do so, right? Bad things will happen if we don't. Can get killed, end up in a wheelchair, lose our license, and there's all the financial consequences. Could even end up in jail. So anyway, at a deep foundational level, we're making decisions based on the rules of the road, and that allows us to predict how the behavior, or I should say the behavior of the other traffic. So we're making thousands of decisions unconsciously a second based on the rules of the road at that foundational level. Why thousands? Because of the constant movement, how dynamic it is, how everything's changing. And that future vision is giving us the information we need to determine what lane and what speed we're going to drive at. In other words, the functional stuff. And all this is happening unconsciously. And at that deep unconscious level, we recognize we're not going to get the next piece to the pattern, and boom, it triggers a correction at the functional level. And this is what high intuitive performers do. They're making thousands of decisions at a deep unconscious foundational level. And then that self-trust is allowing those decisions to be executed unconsciously at a functional level. And that's what high performers do. They're highly intuitive. They have great awareness because of the ability to filter, process, and apply information so fast, create that future vision, that pattern, if you will. And then all the work that's done to speed up and improve decision making, create the pattern, gives them the awareness, the trust to execute at the functional level. And that's a development gap that nobody talks about. Nobody's recognized, but now it's become apparent because of this incredibly accelerating rate of change. So foundational decisions develop the awareness we need to make the right decisions at the functional level. Foundational decisions form rational perspectives, lead to reasonable expectations, and those reasonable expectations allow us to project a future vision of price movement. And then functional decisions decide when to enter and exit the market. So there's this massive gap at the foundational level that keeps us from developing the beliefs and behaviors we need to be proactive to get decision making ahead of price movement. And obviously, the stronger our foundational decision making is, the faster we're going to filter, process, and apply information, the higher the probability we'll have the awareness to stay ahead of price movement. And so what successful traders have done, they've embraced specific beliefs and behaviors that empower us to filter, process, and apply information most effectively, to have that awareness to excel at the functional level. And it's that process that develops the trust, the energy we need to patiently wait, the trust, the strong conviction we need to consistently execute. And it's this same alignment that speeds up and improves our decision making in everything that we do, not just trading. So like I said, even if you never trade, this process will drive better outcomes, forge stronger relationships, you'll assimilate greater knowledge, develop deeper understanding in everything you do. I'm going to take us through the progression of a construction project just so you guys appreciate just how significant this foundational development gap is. So a construction project starts out by identifying the need, then defining it, how big, the function, the cost of the building, then scout and you purchase the property. Then you have to design the solution specific to the property. You've got to do cost projections, construction timeline. You've got to get approval from the municipality. You've got to get financing. Then you've got to start contracting subs. And then you can start. And usually that starts by site prep, clearing the lot. Then this is a pile driver, putting in those, I think they're about 30, 40 feet retaining walls. They interlock. They're just big pieces of steel that get driven into the ground. And then once you have those, you can start excavating. You'll dig down however deep the building's called for. And, you get in the footings, you put in the concrete pilings to support the structure. You bring in your services, sewer, water, gas, electric, communications, put up the basement walls, the weight-bearing walls, go through a whole bunch more inspection. Then you can get out of the ground. You put, one story up after the next, just repeating the pattern. Traders usually don't do any of that. They don't build the foundation. They get seduced by the simplicity of the trading proposition and consumed by the power of technology, right? We look at the market, hey, it's either going to go up or down. How hard can it be? And I got all this great technology to tell me when to buy or sell, right? It's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. I'm just going to be stacking cheese in no time. Heck, I thought this was going to take me a couple of years. I'm going to be out of here in a couple of months. Seduced by the simplicity of the trading proposition, consumed by the power and temptation of the arcade environment. All right, I'm just communicating with Dan here for a second. He's telling me I've got 10 minutes left. So we're going to wrap this up here. So how do we fill this gap? Well, again, it's learning how to build and earn trust most effectively. We do that, we're going to have the awareness to stay ahead of real-time events in an ever-accelerating rate of change. Why? It allows us to think independently. And it's that independent thought that develops the awareness we need to stay ahead. Independent thought is what drives proactive behavior. And we get really good at it, we get to high intuitive function. And when we have the support of others around us, in other words, we've made our intentions transparent, we've earned their trust and support, they're helping us, now everything gets accelerated that much faster. So doing the work to build and earn trust is the most effective way to earn the trust and support of others. To develop the awareness we need to unconditionally trust others, to have that frictionless environment, no distraction and conflict, information and knowledge flying, the dynamics of success. So there's an undeniable disconnect between advancing technology and economic well-being because of this lack of understanding for the power and construction of trust. I'll give another quick example here. Do you guys understand capitalism is the monetization of trust? Everybody know that? In other words, if you look at the book value, assets less liabilities of a company, and compare it to the capitalized value, shares outstanding times stock price, you're going to get two different values. Last time I looked for Google, it was way back in 2013. End of the year. Their book value was about $8 billion. Their capitalized value was about $180 billion. Spread of $172 billion. That's the capitalization of trust. You want to understand how we became the most powerful nation in such a short period of time? Our ability to, our ability to monetize trust. Amazon's an extreme example, but when that's playing itself out multiple times, you can see the benefit. So here's some things that you can do. I already talked about the first one. Shut down your ego, right? Shut down your ego. Second is use the energy equation. In other words, anxiety and energy move inversely to each other. So the way we get rid of anxiety is when it's present, we understand it's there because we've allowed our ego to take us to believe we can control things that we can't and know things that we don't. So we just have to take back our power by focusing on what we can control, looking for a gap to fill. And that's going to flip that. That's going to drive anxiety down and energy up. So again, whenever you're feeling anxiety, understand your ego likely got the best of you. Go back and focus on what you can control. One of the ways to do that is we want to make a habit out of taking every opportunity to develop a more complete understanding for what we believe we already know. Remember, the wiser a man becomes, the more he knows that he doesn't know. So we want to keep our curiosity fired up. We want to be like that 5-year-old, why, and then be the adult to do the work to find the answer. So functional stuff, that's deciding where price is going and when. The foundational stuff are the beliefs and behaviors, developing the awareness we need to make those decisions. So you can imagine the competitive advantage we gain by building this foundation. We create the balance and trust to support intuitive function. We build this engine that optimizes decision making and execution. So bottom line, to put it all into practice, it's hard. Change is hard. It's disruptive. It demands a high degree of accountability. That's why you need a program. That's why you need support. It's virtually impossible to do this on your own. So again, there's not a hardship here. You don't have to get up at 5 in the morning. You don't have to lose a bunch of weight. Don't have to go back to school. Don't have to work a whole bunch more hours. All you have to do is the desire to better understand what works and then put the effort in to do what works better. And we got a short window here to be able to get there. You know, to really appreciate just how this onslaught is, imagine each die in this image is a piece of information, all demanding our attention. Now I want you to imagine they're flying out at the screen at us at about 30, 40 miles an hour. We're close, so that would be fast. And if we could protect ourselves and look out into the horizon, we'd see a wall of information getting higher and deeper by the moment coming to smother us. It's out there. It's coming. We have to choose now if we're just going to be a victim or if we're going to do what we need to do to get ahead of it. So that's what my 5-star trading does. It teaches you how to build and earn trust most effectively. Fill that foundational gap. You go through the training, you're going to know how to align to the beliefs and behaviors causing information to be filtered, processed, and applied most effectively. You're going to be able to optimize your decision making and execution. You're going to be able to slingshot your development and performance because you're going to go from a natural linear learning and improvement progression to an exponential development path. You're going to learn how to achieve and sustain high intuitive function. You're going to develop the awareness and ability to keep decision making ahead of real-time events. You're going to go from linear to exponential. You're going to know how to consistently achieve and sustain high intuitive function to go from ordinary to extraordinary. So that's what basic training does. 4 sessions, 9 modules, they get you there. I'm running out of time. But it's basically 6 hours of instruction broken out into 9 on-demand learning modules, collectively requiring about 12 hours of reflective work. So basically 18 hours. You can do it over the course of a weekend and still have time to do other stuff. Then you start the 90-day reflection cycle. That gets us in to be able to put it into practical application, providing highly targeted direction, guidance, and support over 12 weeks. You get a reflection each weekday for 12 weeks. And then every month, 3rd Saturday of each month, I do a Saturday morning review to go deeper. So naturally, if you complete the instruction in the 90-day cycle, you'll be much more likely to stay ahead of price movement instead of chasing it. You're going to have more energy at the end than the start of the day. And that's why you should purchase basic training. You can go to trustfirst.com to get it. And if you purchase by midnight tonight, I'll include the basic training for business professionals and entrepreneurs. And also, anytime you purchase from me, if you move up to my full year trader development program or the Trader Blitz, I will credit your purchase. So if you just go to trust1st.com/purchase.html, that'll get you there. And again, purchase by midnight tonight. You'll get the basic training for business professionals and entrepreneurs, $297 for free. And again, I'll credit your purchase should you move up to anything else. And so I guess the last thing I want to leave you with, we're at 9:40, is that intuitive development takes each of us to where we want to go by connecting us more deeply to our work at functional, psychological, and practical levels. That's what creates the balance and trust we need to go from that linear to exponential development path, to go from ordinary to extraordinary. So Dan, I'm out of breath. And while we're waiting for Dan to come back in, does anyone have any thoughts, comments, questions? Again, I can't encourage you guys enough. Take advantage of this. And when you go to that trust1st.com, click on purchases, you'll see the list of everything. You can click on it, and it'll take you in, and you can read the reviews. That's another thing. And I mean, this stuff's been around a long time. Dave Begos, he's an electrical engineer and contractor. Not only did it help him with trading, but also helped him with his business opportunities that he saw. These are on my website. Folks that have gone through, Eric Beckton came through from Top Step Trader and took IDT right in the beginning before he started. He said, I can look back at my trading education and development. Two things were truly valuable. IDT was standing the test of time, becoming more relevant, more valuable with each passing day. These are all on my website. About a year ago, I went to the learning management system, and these are reviews that people have posted after they've completed the training. And so when you go to the store to purchase, you can click on the description, and in the tab, you'll see a review tab, and you can read the reviews. So does it really take just 18 hours? Yep. At the end of 18 hours, you will be amazed at what you're capable of and how achievable it is. And again, that 90-day reflection cycle is going to take you down the path. And then certainly you're going to have access to the training for a full year. So you're going to want to repeat it multiple times. And I've had folks that have done that live online with me and come from as far away as Dubai and Singapore to do the training live with me here in Chicago. So, you know, again, there's not a better gift that you can give to yourself. There's not a better gift that you can give to one of your children if they're in high school or college or just entering the workforce. Again, let me go. Just look at what's happening to the rate of change over the next 2.5 years. We're in the process of going from 250 to 500 units between now and 2018, jumping to 1,000. And then on our way to 1 million by 2040, 1 billion by 2060, and 1 trillion by 2080. So hopefully we'll all be happily retired, but it's not going to be happy if we can't be aware of what's going on, keep our decision making ahead, have that wisdom to share with our children, our family, those that we really care about. And if we're chasing the day's events, letting other people making decisions for us, or even worse, have a chip in our head, it's not going to be a pleasant experience.